downloading today. Okay, we're live streaming as well. Sensational. Everything's looking good. Okay, a little intro. Welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm very, very excited to finally be joined by my very good friend, Miss Kelly Bowen. She's the Director of Lifestyle Finance Australia. She's also the host of the Inspired Conversations podcast and someone I love working with very much. So, Kelly, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was an awesome introduction. And might I say, you have a sexy radio voice.
Bullshit,
I could listen to you all day long.
Really?
Yeah. You know how some people have a great phone voice? You've got a great radio voice.
I've never liked my voice, to be honest. So I'll take that. Thank you, because I've always had like a lisp and a freaking one of my teachers told me I had a tinny voice back at school. And I think that stuck with me.
Really? I would have said you have a really nice bass tone. And it's more so like do you know we actually only hear 80% of our sound projection. So that's why what we hear ourselves to what we hear on recording, we hear 100% on the recording, but in our own ears, we're only hearing 80% of that projection. So that's why it always sounds a bit funny.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, there you go. Well, bass, I can sing deep. I can do the Johnny Cash kind of like, I hang my head and cry, that kind of thing. So that's a lot of fun. We were just having a little chat before that I want to kind of roll up a little bit because it actually segues really nicely from my last podcast with a guy called Daniel Murray, who is a consultant who works with corporate mostly, kind of like Combank, QBE, like big companies.
Oh, the big guys, yep.
Yeah, and I said, like, how do you go into a big company and talk, about how to help them improve when they're doing multi-million dollars? And he's like, it's not about the company, it's about the people. I consult for the people. And you were just saying that in corporate, they seem to try and put the heart and the soul of a person into a little box, not to corporate, not to rag on corporate, but it's really interesting what you were saying. Dig into that a little more for us.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm still just with what you said, how your friend, the consultant, goes in for the people as opposed to the company. It's really interesting. I think this will kind of tie in with it. So I still remember, this is like, mind you, I was 22 at this point, and I was working in a call center, and I was a team leader because I thought that was like, that was kind of the goal of where I was trying to get to. And I was really proud of myself for being there at 22. And I still remember the company every year would do this 12-month review. And they would sit you down and they would look like whether you met your KPIs. And if you didn't, then you'd kind of have like a chat to see whether they'd tick the box for you so that you'd get your end of year bonus. And this particular year, I hadn't met my KPIs, but there'd been like a lot of changes, and it wasn't necessarily so much me as it was internal structural changes. And I remember my boss saying to me, like, I know that you've been a little bit distant the last few months, and I'm happy and willing to tick this box for you if you promise me that you're going to be all in and give us everything you have. And it was in that moment, like I knew I was already starting to get like those deeper yearnings, as much as you can at 22 for my life is greater purpose than this. And I know there's something more for me. And I'd been starting to look into personal training because that was like health and fitness had always been my like backbone growing up. And I'd always been passionate about it. And I was starting to kind of like get these deeper yearnings, and I really wanted the bonus so I could go do a personal training course. So I did the only thing a kid at 22 could do who wanted their bonus was look their boss in the eye and lie and say, absolutely, my heart is so in the company. I totally believe in the vision and values, and I will have my team performing at a blah, blah, blah. I said all the things, right? Yet as I did, I felt there was a part of me, there was a part of my soul and my heart that was dying, because I knew in that moment I'd self-betrayed at a level that I hadn't been conscious of before. And then as that 12-month progressed with my team, what I love most in ending up in coaching and finance for coaches is that I love developing people into their dreams. So with my team, I eventually had a high-performing sales team, but with each one of them, I developed them to a level and then helped them transfer into the part of the company that they originally started working in the call center for. They loved me. Call center management did not love me. And it wasn't long after that where I left, and I was like, wow, that's so interesting, because they wanted me to put what I was passionate about into a box, yet at the same time in doing that, when I did do that, they would then wanted to take away from me because I wasn't behaving like a good little team leader and trying to keep everybody locked into the call center. And I guess now as a business owner, I get it. Like, of course, you know, you train your staff up to a level so they can serve the clients at that level, and you want to keep them for a bit before you move them on. Totally get the different perspective as a business owner. But from that experience, I just really saw how with corporate, their focus isn't as, how do I really leverage and utilize unique talents and gifts of the individual, as opposed to, I need you to fit in this box and do this job. And I think there can be a blend for both to be really magic. But that for me was the breaking point where I was like, right, I have to go do something on my own. I have to find something that I can pour my heart and passion into, and that be an expression of me in the world.
What a hectic story. That's so good.
Sorry, we might have 1 second. I'm just going to mute so you guys don't have to do that.
You're all good. Kelly's just attending to her young puppy dog right now. A very sweet and adorable puppy. And, you know, these live sessions last week, I had a Amazon guy come to the door and he needed a signature during the podcast. And I was like, so my front window is right there, and he was standing there, and I was like, oh, I gotta go. I was like, Daniel, can you just riff for a couple of minutes and just let my guests alone on the live stream? So,
look, if that happens, I've got you back.
Thank you. I know you do, because you know your stuff. And I'm gonna send you a clip after this, which is, I won't make you go and listen to a whole podcast because you're a busy lady, but I'll send you a clip after this about my last guest, Daniel Murray. He wrote a children's book called The Monkey and the Rhino. And it's about that, exactly what you just said, about the monkeys getting, the monkeys getting wet in the rain, or the monkeys getting bitten by mosquitoes or something. And he's saying to the rhino, doesn't this bother you? And he's like, no, you just need to get a thicker skin. And then the rhino can do things the monkey could do. And it's about people just like judging each other on their ability to do things in a certain box that's expected of them. It was very, very cool. I think you'll like it. I look
forward to reading it. It sounds awesome.
I've got the book on the way, actually. I ordered it. So it's
that's cool.
It's like 11 pages. So nice and easy. We can both manage that.
I can manage 11 pages. And particularly if it's written in context for children, I can do that.
Yeah, the pictures help. Help.
They sure do.
So finance, you're here because you're in the finance game. And when I say you're in the finance game, that is something that a few years ago would have just like, my eyes would have glazed over. I'd been like, that's it. Okay, I get it. Finance, you know, when you open your phone and you accidentally like go into the finance screen and it's all like the stocks, you know, what is this bullshit right here? This is nonsense. Finance for you has become a really great way of creating impact for a lot of people. And I love the way you're doing it. But I've got a big question for you first.
Sure.
Kelly Bowen, what is money to you?
Oh, that's a great question, Alex. I don't think I've ever been asked so directly about that. What is money to me? For me, money is a resource tool that can be leveraged to do great things in the world, change lives, create impact, and anchor a completely new way of functioning, or like anchor the new world for all. And I think it's through business that we do that, because it's through business and through our interactions and the standards that we hold and the care that we give for our customers that creates that. It's the ripple on effect. Like if you can take $10,000 and then create something that you're then able to go on and offer service with, like this is how it all sort of ripples out, where we're all following and using the same values. That's when the paradigm changes really quickly. So money for me simply is a resource tool to create mass impact, change, and make the world a better place.
That's been Coaches to the Moon, ladies and gentlemen. See you next week. Mic drop. How good is that? What a lovely expression of it. And I'm beginning to honestly think so much in the way that you think now, because I'm very blessed that for the first time in 7 years, my business is doing really well. I don't need any more money for my family. More would be great to do more things, but we're fine. And now I'm thinking like, what can we do with it? And so my team and I are doing incentives for like projects and stuff like that, like around the world. It's very, very cool. Yeah. So impact is such a fantastic, I guess, just mission. And is that, what was your sort of mission starting out with lifestyle finance?
To get money to invest in my coaching business so I could do sales and marketing. That was originally so I originally was a coach, and I was in the health coaching space. We sort of like program evolved into more of a life coaching business. And I was really struggling with the sales and marketing component of it, because I just thought I could be really great at what I do and the clients would come. However, that's just not how it works, as you would know, being that this is your space of expertise. And my best friend had a finance brokerage at the time, and she was watching me struggle, and she'd also grown a business coaching business and had this finance brokerage at the same time. And she'd sort of transitioned out and she needed somebody in the brokerage. She was like, this worked for me. Why don't you come and learn finance with me? You can make some quick cash. You can invest that back into your business. And then, when you're ready to go on and do your own thing, I'll decide what I want to do with the business. And I was like, great, fine, get some cash, what it's like at the beginning of your business. It's always that kind of roller coaster, get the cash, reinvest, see what happens, get the cash, reinvest, see what happens. And anyway, so time progresses, probably a couple of years, and I was finally starting to get my head around this whole concept of marketing and messaging, and finally starting to make headway. And at the same time, I was getting that nudge, go full-time finance. I'm like, why? Finance was never a career path. It was never a passion. I would not hire me for paperwork. Sales is one thing, but paperwork. Anyway, so I was getting this nudge, and we were financing bikes, cars, boats, that kind of stuff. And it was fun helping people obtain their material dream, but it wasn't fulfilling that deeper need of really creating serious change and impact. And then my best friend came back from an event that she'd been at. She'd been speaking to her friend. And he said that he'd recently scaled his business from a 7-figure revenue business to a 7-figure cash received business within the last 12 months. And she was like, how did you do that? Because she was sort of right at that point as well. And he was like, I've been using finance. And it's kind of that moment where you get slapped across the face with a fish and you're like, what? What do you mean you've been using finance? Who have you been using? And it turned out he'd been using a lender that we'd had the whole time, but because it was a personal loan, we'd never taken it seriously, because you only go down that path if your client doesn't qualify for the sort of assets that we were financing on the first tier products. And then, so we pulled it out and we looked at it and we started using it for some of her programs and started having success. And then it was the penny drop was that's why I'm being asked to stay here. And this is why I'm being asked to let go of my business, because it kind of led to the path where now I can solve the very problem that had me struggle for other coaches, which is having them paid in full from day one and having the clients being able to afford your services at something they can afford. Because a $10,000 product, when you're looking at finance, it's only about $53 a week. Whereas that if you have to pay that off in 6 months, that's, let's use 10 months because it's easier. It's $1,000 a month. Do you know what I mean? So people have $53 a week lying around in their bank account. And if they don't, they shouldn't necessarily be in business. But $1,000 a month, depending upon what stage you're at in business, that's a fair chunk of change. So it completely flips the paradigm on its head, where for the first time ever, coaches can get paid 80% of the time in full from day one if they go down this path. And for the client, particularly if they're in business, then they get to keep their cash flow where it's most powerful, at the front of their business, because nobody misses $53 a week. And then it's kind of that's the sort of shift that when we're in business, we care more about our cash flow than caring about necessarily saving money in the short term, because that's not what it's about. It's about how can I leverage my resources to get maximum growth and impact. So that's how I ended up in finance. It wasn't a deliberate career choice. It was more coincidence, accidents, and I guess right time, right place.
Awesome. Same with me in marketing, to be honest. Same thing. We were both health coaches. We were both, sort of living off it, but not really, kind of thing. Surviving off of it. And then when I found out that we had not one but 2 babies coming along, I was like, I can't do half of the stuff I did in my job, which was I used to do cooking demos, and I would be going and doing recipe books for gyms and stuff like that, and webinars and phone calls with America. And I was like, I can't do this for the first at least 3 to 6 months. So I've got one client I'm doing marketing for. I'll just do more of that. And I was means to an end. And then it turned out it was solving the problem that I had in my business. And what a freaking perfect story. It's it reflects my journey so well, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you listen, huh? When you kind of get out of your own way, instead of being it has to look like this, and kind of go with the path of least resistance. I remember when we first met, you were still doing the health stuff, weren't you?
Yeah, and it was fine. It wasn't we had a few different iterations of it, and then I had one of them that started working really well, and we were using a finance company, and we were getting upfront payments for the first time, and we were completely living off it, which was really cool. And then kind of essentially we made some bad business decisions, and we couldn't do that one anymore. But by that point, I had a bit of money and we could continue, and I was able to do my own thing. And I was still kind of helping out my friends in restaurants every now and then, but it was all good. And then, but this marketing business has just been flowing. Like I've got a deal with Kelly about to drop right now, which is super duper cool, because this is once again just cash flow in the bank. And as I said, everything's going fine. And so now we can use that and be like, okay, do we put it into ad spend? Do we put it into some more videos? Do we put it into some marketing? Do we save it? That's tax. And then everything else we've got is now liquid. It's super duper cool what you're doing, and really, really helpful. So I think it's a good segue into my next question, because you're someone like we've just gone through who, as many coaches are, you're a bit down on your luck at one point in your business, but now you're one of the ones who's actually managed to create a great, successful business out of it. So from your perspective, coming from the finance space, looking into the coaching industry, what are the common factors you see in the coaches who actually succeed in this business?
Oh, you ask great questions, Alex. Really great questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so the ones that really succeed in this, they have a premium offer that's more than $4,000. And they're not just great at their front end sales, getting people through the door. They're really great on the delivery of their service for that premium offer. We're really clear with that one. They also have made the shift out of getting to the end of their sales process and going, so full payment is $10,000, or I have a payment plan starting at $300 a week. What's best for you? They actually shift it so that the in-house payment plan no longer exists, and it's either full investment is $10,000, or we have finance starting from $53 a week. What feels best for you? What would you like to know more about? And then hear what they say. And it's only if they don't qualify for finance, or they don't meet the criteria, or they really have some objections around it and they can easily meet the in-house payment plan, that's when you offer it. But doing that, it takes all the risk. Like they get and they understand that the risk that they carry on the payment plans is way more than the risk of asking the client, do they want to pay with finance for the beginning? And the third thing that I find, the ones that really fly in this space have a clean map around finance. So what I mean by that is they're not carrying any of the debt is bad, I've got shame around my debt, or I shouldn't have this, or this means something about me not being enough. Because the truth about finance or debt, it's simply leverage of other people's money. And earlier, like when you asked me, what do I believe money is? I believe it's a leverage of resource. When we can intelligently use finance, it allows us to use other people's money at a really small interest repayment, which I like to think is gratitude for somebody saying yes to investing in me when I didn't have the capital to do it. Because it's no different to buying a car. We like to drive nice cars. We're comfortable with getting finance for the nice car and having the nice car now and making the weekly repayments that we can manage, and we don't even think about it. When it comes to our growth and education, it's exactly the same, except we're the soft asset we're investing in. And unlike a car that depreciates, you can only appreciate, and you'll get a 10x or more return on investment in such a shorter amount of time. And I think the coaches that really fly with it, they get that, and they do really well, like yourself, at transferring that into their sales calls and to their clients, so that they get it on a neurological level, that this is actually helping them. It's like buying a house, except they're the investment. Does that make sense?
Massively. And I honestly couldn't, it's so funny, everything you're saying, because I've been in the coaching space for so long, it feels like every time you say a story, I'm like, yeah, that happened to me. But it's great, because I think I've been in the shoes of a lot of coaches who might be listening to this show, who are the ones who are generally earlier on in their business and, haven't quite flipped that switch yet to when it just feels easy. And for me, I mean, I went through so many times when I was taking out, $20,000 programs when I did not have anywhere near $20,000 in the bank. And over and over again, and people are like, you're a fucking maniac. What are you doing this for? NLP courses, coaching courses, hypno marketing, all sorts of stuff. I think I've done about 150 grand in courses so far. And I'll do that back, in the first 6 months of this year, which is just legit now. But everyone is like, don't do it. You're being scammed. Yet every freaking day on Facebook, people go and buy a new car. Great for them. And there's 300 likes. Congratulations on the new car. You know, 36 grand in debt, which is fine.
With a depreciating asset.
And I wouldn't judge. I wouldn't dare to judge people. Whatever they want to do with their money is fantastic for them. It's interesting that, like you said, the way our society thinks about, what you say, soft assets versus hard assets, material versus kind of training. What's a uni degree these days? Like $100,000?
Yeah, well, it depends upon what you're studying. I think they could, maybe a cheap one might be about 35, anywhere up to 100 and something if you're doing like medical or law.
Right.
And even then, like, you're in that for, I don't know, 4 to 5 years with some of them. And when you do a course, like even if you're taking 20 grand to do a 12-month course, what you're learning in there from a tangible life perspective, a tangible, like in the business perspective, is 10x to anything you're going to read out of a book, because you're in it. And the other thing that I find, and I'm not sure if this is sort of where your listeners are at, however, I feel like it's relevant to say it, is that anybody who goes into business thinking it's going to solve their broke problem, I want to burst that bubble, because it doesn't. And anybody who thinks they don't have to spend money to get ahead in business, that's also an illusion. Because in business, like you can't build a foundation of abundance starting in scarcity. You can't, it's a frequency mismatch. And then business, if you want people to pay you money to pay for your products and services, you've got to be willing to go pay for products and services to work on yourself and your business and your growth too. Otherwise, again, vibrational mismatch. So I think this is where we start to ask the questions like, okay, well, if this is how I need to invest, and if I don't have the cash resources for it, what are my options? How can I be creative about this? How can I get clever about it? And this is where, like, I think finance really solves that problem. We just haven't been trained or entrained that debt is part of wealth in this process, because it really is. And if you look at any multimillionaire and their profile of how they got to where they were, they've leveraged debt. I've certainly leveraged debt. I know you have. Like, we've all done it to get to where we are. And it's that building the muscles around being really comfortable with it that allows us to catapult that growth and jump like timelines, bring a 10-year goal into a 2-year kind of goal.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I like that, you're coming from it in a place that is like, you're not preaching to people that any decisions they're making are bad. I feel like you feel like a very approachable person, whereas like I know I went for a business loan to a bank when I was starting a cafe when I was like 23, and they looked at me like I was dirt, like I was a complete idiot, and I didn't get that vibe from all these suits. And I feel like the reason that, one of the reasons you're doing so great is you're super approachable. You make things very, very simple for us, and there's no judgment around people who really don't understand money that well.
No, and we're not taught to understand money. That's the thing. We're taught to understand money in a way that keeps us trapped in a cycle.
Yeah.
And
yes.
It's unlearning what we've been taught. Like the days of the go to school, go to uni, get a good degree, get a good job, get a house, get a picket fence, 2.5 kids, buy another house. Like that's gone. We want to live. We don't want to work to live. We want to live to work, but we want passion to be in what we're doing. We want our heart to be in what we're doing. And we want to be able to live those experiences now. And that old model, that old programming doesn't allow for that. So this is us breaking out of that programming. And this is us learning how to really use money in a functional way, because we haven't been taught that. We've been taught to do it what worked for baby boomers. And like, bless the baby boomers, they were amazing because they've created the infrastructure that we're now in. However, digital age has made things like we can work from home and we can do things differently, and we can create our work life around our lifestyle. Like, how great is it for you, Alex, being able to work from home and do everything that you're doing? Like, we're literally just chatting about how you changed your business to be able to fit in with your family life so you could be with your family. This is the age we're living in. But to do that, we've got to change how we think about money and what's possible.
Yeah, it is rad. It is rad. I you know, with no bragging whatsoever, I don't know, triple, quadruple what I used to make in 60 hours in a restaurant in 5 hours a day, and it's taken a freaking long time to get here, I'll tell you that. But now it's great. And I'm really, really happy with it. But I will say this to segue into my sort of final question for you, because I feel like this is a conversation that could go on for days because I'm having so much fun with it. However, I've actually got to send some invoices out before midday, everyone's favorite thing. So
gotcha.
No, I'm not cutting you short. No, but you and I, we've gotten to a point where we clearly have used enough debt, we've done enough programs, spent enough money, and gone through dodgy periods enough that we know now how to make decisions with money. Now, I'm far from perfect and by no means have everything sorted out. But now that I have a family to take care of as well, it's not just me, there's 4 of us because I was blessed to have 2 kids at the same time. I treat my money in a different way than how I used to. I spend a lot less. When I was like 24, I bought a freaking secondhand sports car in cash. I was like, here you go. And I was like the biggest shot in the world, but I lived at home. So do you think that when young coaches, they first start making a few grand at a time on the phone and they see like, oh, I've got 8 grand in the bank, suddenly they lose a bit of respect for that money? And how do you think they can start to change that mindset and their habits in the future?
Good question. So I personally believe that money amplifies who you are. So if you're really awesome and generous, it's going to amplify all the really awesome and generous qualities about you. If you're a bit of a dick, for use of better words, it's going to amplify those aspects. It's also going to amplify aspects of if you feel like you've been deprived around money. When you start to get money, it's like, oh, I'm going to give myself all of these things. Or if you've been conditioning yourself to a certain being or a certain identity, often the first thing people do is start going and purchasing the things for their physical environment to start matching their external environment. Hang on, is that right? You know what I mean? So they go start purchasing the things so they start actually matching their internal representation of themselves. And all of these things are great. And I, having gone through all of these experiences myself, if I was to do my time a little differently, and if I was to give that younger version of myself a little bit of advice for doing that exact same thing, of like, oh, look at all this money coming in and yay, look at all doing this, would be give myself a budget of how much I can do this with, and be really on top of tax, BAS statements, like get all of that stuff in order. Get your books in order, get your BASs in order, get your accounts, like all of that stuff, so that with all the money coming in, that basic living stuff's taken care of. Give yourself a fun budget to blow, because it's really fun. And if you've been living in a little bit of deprivation around money, or there is that internal representation you've been calibrating your external reality to, have a budget for that, and have a buffer account where you put all the surplus money into, so that you're still being able to meet those needs and play with those needs. All your basic living expenses are taken care of, and you've got that rainy day account. And I wish younger me had done that, because I learned some of those lessons the hard way.
Yeah, especially the tax one. You never think about the tax one until that first bill comes, right?
No, it's, oh, I've got all this money, yay. Future me can worry about that, until future me had to deal with that. And I was like, what were you thinking?
Ouch. What's in your fund budget at the moment? Not how much money's in there, but what kind of things are you spending your fund budget on? What do you love to do?
Well, it depends. So last year I went through a really big phase where I ended a relationship, and I was like really finding that new identity of myself and who I am now. So every month I gave myself like a couple of grand to just blow on allowing my internal idea of who I was to calibrate. And that was really fun, because I had something to look forward to every month. Other things, I recently, again, it was the right time to do this. I finally bought that sports car that I'd always wanted, but it's like all those things that we're talking about, like recently I've done that. But other little things that I enjoy doing just from a take care of me perspective, massages, facials, nails, like all of your girly things. I love going on adventures. Like recently, I've just been to Mission Beach and exploring new things and new places, that kind of stuff. So every month I get, depending, and again, income fluctuates month to month in finance, depending upon what's going on. And then I give myself a fun budget in proportion to what I've got left over. And some months that's more than others. And the fun budget sometimes is bigger than others. But that keeps that part of myself really satisfied, that I'm still getting to enjoy the money that I'm still getting to enjoy the money that I'm, for the energy that I'm putting out. So it keeps that part happy, that I'm still enjoying and playing and having pleasure, without it feeling like this monster that's been starved and then wants to go and splurge and self-sabotage.
100%.
Yeah. What about you? What do you spend your fun budget on?
Orders. They're expensive. Basically I would say house plants and wine.
Oh, really? Yes, nice.
Yeah. So like, I don't know if you've ever tried to grow your own vegetables, but it costs way more than just like buying vegetables.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. It's so much fun.
Hard. Yeah.
So I got 2 veggie pods outside the window. Veggie pods are awesome. They're like a self-contained kind of raised garden bed with a self-watering system and everything.
Oh, that's cool.
Really cool. And so I got 2 of them out there, and that's a big project of mine. My wife and I get like wine subscriptions every month. So I mean, everything we drink is like nice quality, because we're trying to make sure that everything that we take in is like good quality stuff in terms of our food and our, just trying to set that boundary in our house, that less shit going into us really. And so I guess, house plants and wine, because we don't really get to go out much because,
kids,
toddlers, so, but yeah, that's basically us at the moment. Not many holidays coming up or anything, but, and then, every now and then it's really fun for us to go and buy like, some new tricycles or something for the girls, because that becomes fun for us to see them experience stuff. So it's a heck of a lot of fun, and I recommend the fun budget as well. Kelly, Bowen, thank you so much for that really just insightful and beautiful conversation today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Alex. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed being here, and I just think you're awesome. I love what you do. I've seen a few of your clients come through the business and do really great things. I'm a huge supporter.
Great. Well, I'm going to send some more to you, because that switch you just gave me earlier on of just like not even presenting the in-house payment plan. Super interesting. I've always done that. It's just this is what it is per month.
Yeah.
This is what it is per month. But let's see what happens if I don't do that.
Great. Look forward to seeing them and meeting them.
I bet you do. How good. Well, to anyone listening or watching us live, thank you so much for your support and your engagement. Anyone on the recording, same thing to you. I'll be back next week with another episode of Coaches to the Moon. This has been me and Kelly Bowen. Thank you so much. Much love and peace.